Well, good morning, Southern Oregon, and welcome to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lima here with my co-host, Pete Belcastro. We're both brokers here at John L. Scott in Southern Oregon, and we're here to bring you up to speed what happened this week in Southern Oregon real estate. Pete, how are you today?
Well, hey, it's Memorial Day weekend. We remind ourselves of that and the sacrifices and what this weekend means. A lot of people, it's a very significant time, Memorial Day. And so anyway, we acknowledge that and respect and all the people who work so hard and serve the country. Having said that, it's also, by the way, the Rogue Valley Cup is in Medford. It is the biggest event of the year. People don't realize that. The big soccer tournament that's going on throughout the city. There's no hotel rooms around. I mean, all the Airbnbs are all full. I mean, it's just amazing how that one event draws so many people here. But it also shows you that we're coming out more and more of the pandemic, Alice. So even beyond real estate, I mean, there's activity returning. And I think because of that, it's affecting the real estate market, which we're going to talk about today. Because as people go out to go camping again and people go out to do more things, the attention maybe is changing in real estate. And maybe we've hit that plateau. Don't know, but I'm saying maybe we've hit that price plateau at least. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What do you think?
Well, I really agree with that. And here's why. I've been watching all the new listings come on, and not only are there more of them in all price points, but they're coming in at a price that is equal to what the market is. They're not coming in higher. And I'm noticing some of those cottages in Old East Medford, Central Point, and West Medford coming in right around 250, some of them even 235,000. And yes, they might get multiple offers, but what I noticed is they're move-in ready, they're clean, they're in really nice condition, and they're being listed at under 300. So I think we have hit the plateau.
Well, the reason you hit a plateau is that a price can only go so high. And we're seeing that certainly the luxury market is just enormous. And we talked about that last week. Remember, Lennox Scott was with us, and we talked about how that luxury market has changed. We learned a lot from him. And I also talked this week over at Guy Giles, one of our sponsors, a Mutual of Omaha Mortgage. He moved to a new office, and some of their execs were there. And I talked with them about what's happening in the cities. And we'll talk about that, Alice. There's so much going on. It's a changing market. It changes weekly, changes daily. That's what we're going to talk about today.
So stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. We're brought to you by John L. Scott, Southern Oregon, Medford, and Ashland, Guy Giles, Mutual of Omaha Mortgage, and our very own local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. Do not touch that dial. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lima will be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. Pete Belcastro and Alice Lima here. We're your co-hosts for the day. John L. Scott brokers here in Southern Oregon. And we were just talking on this Memorial weekend about the changing market and how for a change, Pete and I are both agreeing that we might be stabilizing and the prices might not be going up much anymore. What do you think, Pete?
Well, prices can only go so high, Alice. And the reason is that you have at the top end of the market, which is the luxury market, and prices 900,000 and above. And they're just ample properties to view there. In fact, Jackson County this last week had 75 luxury homes on the market, 75 out of a total of 333. That's really a lot. And still there were seven. What was crazy though, there were 7 pending sales last week of luxury properties in Jackson County, 2 in Josephine County, and each county had sold 2. So even though there's a lot of listings, it is certainly a buyer's market out there, I think, in terms of luxury homes, because there's so many of them that are out there. And there's some, if you're into that part of the market, there's some really beautiful properties, as you know, that are out there for sale. But for most of us, we're not in that category. You may be, but I'm not. But there's a great amount of inventory there. But I see what's really happening, Alice, is this is the first week. Now, we've been at it several weeks. We watch our stats every week. We've seen a slow, steady kind of increase by week. Even though we had a lot of pending sales, it still is getting a little bit higher. The low point that we had in terms of inventory that I've kept for us, Alice, was on March 1st, that week of March 1st to March 7th of this year, where Klamath County only had 65 listings on the market, Josephine County had 85, and Jackson County had 220. Remember those? Remember that? That was like just 2 months ago. Now, even if we've sold, look how much has been sold. Jackson County is now 335. Josephine County has 152, and Klamath County has 150 listings out there right now. So It's almost, hasn't doubled, but it's increased now to where I think we're just seeing a change. And that change is a few more listings. The price plateau is here. Interest rates are here. And all those are combining maybe to people take a look and slowing things down perhaps just a little bit to kind of better understand what they want to buy, because they don't want to overbuy if you can help it.
Well, and one of the other signals that we had this week, which I thought was very interesting, is people were putting move-in ready properties on the market right around $350,000 over by the new South Medford High School, also in East Medford and Central Point. And they were not getting multiple offers, and they were not getting offers right away. So that, again, we look for these subtle signals, because if that continues, it goes from being a trend to what is actually happening. It's the new platform. And Pete and I have been waiting and watching for months and months to see the number of listings come up and to see the prices stabilize and to have the market just take a breath and not be so frenzied.
Yeah, a frenzy. And actually, because of it, I've had several buyers, and we've been talking and showing stuff over time. They've kind of pulled back, to be honest with you, and said, look, I don't have to go. These are people not having to move. We're looking up, moving up, or
right.
changing your lifestyle. But it's that I can wait a few more months. I can wait a little bit. I don't want to get into these frenzied. And a lot of people do not want to get into multiple offer situations. I was telling you, I met with Mark Ronchetti from Mutual of Omaha yesterday in Medford. He was down with Guy. He was telling me about the Seattle and what's happening there, for example, Alice, where people are moving from the cities out, okay, because they're fed up with many issues there. But where they've gone normally in Seattle to go to the near suburbs, like I guess, those cities around Seattle anyway.
Tacoma, those, yeah.
Not even that. Green Lake.
Okay.
Those kind of neighborhoods. But what's happened is that those communities are being overrun in their parks and in people camping and all the kinds of things. So the next trend is coming into small towns, and that's where you're hearing huge multiple offer over prices. If you read about these things, they're taking place like in a town, they said Carnation, Washington, where people were getting $150,000 over asking price.
Wow.
But there's simply no housing there. But they want to go further out into the suburbs, into the towns now, because they're really escaping the city. He said that's happening in Seattle all over, and that's what's driving so much of these huge price increases that you're seeing coming out of the cities. Now, we're not that way. But look, Josephine County last week had 21 closed sales. That's a little bit fewer than they normally have. But the average price out was $470,000. So Josephine County last week actually overtook Jackson County as the most expensive properties in our three communities.
And it's because people want a little bit more elbow room, and those are just more expensive anyway.
I think small town is maybe the term that.
But these are also all remote workers. This is not our normal Southern Oregon active retired people. These are younger families. These are people from the bigger cities, and they're bringing their jobs with them.
Well, the price change, and looking at some of the stats, the price change from a year is up 20% from 2019. Prices nationally, Alice, and rents are up. The average renter now in the United States pays $1,704 a month in rent. I know, and that goes up and down. I understand that, but you can certainly buy a home for $1,700
or less, or less,
or less. Yeah, maybe less for that same thing. So think of that. That's a kind of a shocking stat. The the percentage of homes that sold above list price, okay, in the country. These are stats from Zillow and from all those kinds of groups. That it's up 28%. This was in December of last year. 28%, almost a third of all homes sold in the United States sold above the list price. All right, and cash sales, Alice, they were as high. I remember back years in the recession when we started back in 2009, 8, 9, in those times when the Great Recession was going on. Cash sales were really high. They were in the 30% range, I think. They fell back as interest rates went down. People could finance easily, and so the amount of cash buyers dropped to 15% in the country in 2019. But now, because of the frenzy that we're seeing and people selling in the cities, getting cash out, buying, the number of cash offers are up to almost 1 of every 4 nationally. So how do you think when you compete against cash offers, you're really in trouble, aren't you, if you don't have one? Is that a fair way to?
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't. It's not automatically the kiss of death. We have a lot of sellers that will pick someone getting a mortgage if it's a conventional mortgage, if they have a good down payment, if they're offering more money in better terms. Cash is easier because you can close quickly and you don't have an appraisal. So
Right.
a cash buyer can overpay. But I think the right strategy with a person getting financing still has a good chance, but you have to play your cards right for that particular seller.
So what you're saying is your offer has to be better than the cash offer.
In a lot of respects, not just money. It has to have some other carrots dangling there. For example, we just had a situation, multiple offers, country property, 500,000-ish, and the seller picked the gal with the mortgage because she was not going to evict the tenants in the ADU who had just had a baby, where the other guy was cash and the money was about the same. And he was going to evict them and rent them out to his own people, kind of thing. Which in Oregon, I think, you got to be careful doing that, by the way, sellers and buyers. You can't just go willy-nilly evict people.
No.
So yeah. And so he was making it more like an investment and at the sacrifice of this young couple. And the lady that bought it, also the lady with the mortgage that bought it, part of why she won is she goes, look, if the appraisal comes in low up to like $8,000, I'll pay it.
Okay.
So all of a sudden she was competing more on an equal footing with the cash person. So it's really interesting how humans decide to choose. And it is a human on the other side there. So keep that in mind, buyers.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I don't do many cash. I've only done a handful of cash purchases. A lot of them that I've done have been for land, small amounts of land, $20,000, $50,000, those kinds of things.
Well, yeah, because those are not financeable. So
right, or investors looking to purchase something and renovate it and those kind of things. Because when you're looking in that market, cash is going to be king because the place is empty, the place is a dump, place needs to be worked, and that kind of thing. But it's good to hear that you can't outdo those. But again, 1 out of every 4 right now nationally are cash offers or cash right now.
That's 25%.
So, to be aware. Yeah, and I think it's really important, as you say, about tenants and additional dwelling units and things. I've got a situation which is kind of interesting. I know we got a break coming up, but where the tenant has lived there, they've sold the property. The new owners are trying to get the tenant out because they want to renovate the place and then resell it. To re-rent it at a higher price, but they can't do that. You can't.
Not in Oregon. Yeah.
It has to, and so they wanted to sign all these documents and things to leave. And my advice to her was not to do that because they can't boot you out. And I've gone that. We did have a situation. I had a place up in northern Klamath County where the tenant came right down to the 90th day, Alice, before they finally did move out of the property. Because, as I said, you do not want to get an eviction against you and any kind of thing. So There's so much about that, and it's such a part of real estate now, especially with renters, additional dwelling units being added, and things like that.
Well, and I just listed a really cherry duplex in Northwest Medford, and it's new enough to have vaulted ceilings. It's got attached garage, a little bit of a yard that's fenced, single story, just a dream. And we really expected multiple offers within 3 days. And we may have multiple offers, but it's going to take more like 7 to 10 days. And that is again another sign. And I prepared the seller. I said, we're in a transition. So maybe it's going to hit the market and it's going to have 16 offers. And maybe you're going to get 2 or 3, and it's going to take a
Oh,
week or so. We just have to wait, because transition markets, it's either feast or famine, right? Because we see some of our weeks, Pete, we have a lot of activity and some we don't. And that's
yeah,
partly how you and I were starting to predict the
yeah,
stabilization.
yeah. Well, I'd want to say the same way. I told the seller, I go, look, we're going to put it on Thursday. You don't have to look at anything until Sunday. We're probably going to get a bunch of offers. We're going to get a lot of showings. Come Sunday, we had nothing.
Oh, yeah.
We had 2 showings and nothing. It took another week and 2 days to finally get an offer get an offer that we accepted. But you're right. I was so surprised and said, that's really changed this, because this was in such a great price range. We should have had more. But again, it's a changing market. Things are changing daily. They change weekly.
But it's nice. It's refreshing. We're so glad, actually. Yay.
Yeah. Well, here to help people get there.
So we have a break coming up. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lima will be right back. Do not touch that dial. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lima. We're your hosts today. We're both brokers here at John L. Scott in Southern Oregon, and we're both witnessing and agreeing. And take note, folks, because it doesn't happen every week. Pete and Alice agree, but that we are starting to, I guess, I call it the transition and settling. Some people would call it bottoming out. But you know what I wanted to ask you? Do you have people, buyers and sellers, thinking there's a crash coming and they should wait? Like the buyers think they should wait and the sellers are scared. Do you have any of that conversation going on?
I say not with sellers as much right now, because there's still enough activity. But buyers are, I think Lennox Scott last week, he always calls about the backlog of buyers. We would have a backlog of buyers in just Jackson County from people who were disturbed by the fire, things like that. So you've got all this at play there. Sellers, I don't think are as worried as much, but buyers are pretty weary right now because they don't want to overpay. And they think, yes, it's got to stop. What goes up must come down. That's all true, and it will, because it can't continue a 20% climb, because what happens, the bottom gets squeezed against the top, because the top of the luxury market now we see is so much, those prices can't go. Look, a $500,000 house can't sell for $1 million. I don't think. A $200,000 house can't sell for $300,000. It just doesn't work that way. And so buyers are more pessimistic about that than I think sellers are. Is there a crash coming? I don't know if it's going to be a crash, because we were talking about this also. The reason I don't think it's going to be a crash, Alice, is that lending is so much stricter this time around than right before the Great Recession in 2005 and 6. Because it's hard to get a loan. You've got to prove you're working.
Oh, it is just the most difficult thing, but I promise if you get through it, you're so much better off, because there's really no reason to avoid buying something right now. It really is a great time. But you know why else there's not going to be a crash? People have equity. Right. It's like a buyer asked me yesterday. He goes, "Where are all the foreclosures?" And I said, "Dude, everybody has equity. Even the handful of people that really struggled during the shutdown, the COVID shutdown, that were non-essential workers and they couldn't come out of it, or independent business owners that couldn't come out of it, they can sell their house and make some money because there's equity. We didn't have that before. Remember, the run-up was different. People were flipping fast. They were buying houses, and then feeding them as rentals. They didn't have the rent to cover it. So when the market crashed in, depending on your part of the country, 08, 07, it was a different scenario. We just don't have that. We have a good economy. It's weird. It's weird out there. But for the most part, we have a good economy. There's just not going to be a bunch of foreclosures. So don't wait. You're going to miss out. You're going to miss out on the deal of a lifetime.
I don't think that the foreclosures, you're correct there. They're you can't find them. And we'll get the stats pretty soon from the SOMLS. And there's not going to be any, we don't even use the term short sale anymore. Are people,
Yeah.
the question it becomes is that are people who are now buying $500,000 and $600,000 homes, where they would normally buy something much cheaper in price, but they've been able to move up and get higher price, beautiful, more, nicer properties because the interest rates have been so low, they've been able to accept what the new payment will be. And so as long as that continues that way, you're going to be fine. That's the area that to me would be the most vulnerable, is in that range, because people are paying, I don't know, again, if the average renter is paying $1,704 now a month in the country, those prices are unsustainable for many people. That's why we have homeless problems, things like that. So that's a pretty discouraging kind of thing almost to hear.
Well, but I would separate the conversation about the purchase market and homeownership and the rental market. And a lot of times they are in sync, but I think right now there's a real split. There's a huge duality between what's going on in the rental market. And in Southern Oregon, part of that is being exasperated by the fires, and the rest of the country doesn't have that. But what's happened here is because of landlording, landlords not wanting to be in the business much anymore. We have so many selling, their tenants have nowhere to go. And that's on top of the shortage that was created just in general market conditions before the COVID. Then you had the COVID and the fires. We have a very unique circumstance here in Southern Oregon where the rents are artificially high. However, saying that, I don't see the pressure, those four pressures being relieved at all. In my opinion, this is just by Alice, because, I like to make predictions. I think the rents are going to be high for like 5 more years. And I am encouraging in my own family and in my own investing to be even more heavily invested in landlording in Southern Oregon, at least for 5 to 10 more years.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're right. I think that the inventory there has gone down as a result of what we've seen, and the prices have gone up, and it squeezes more people out. Look, if we keep selling the way we are, we talk about gentrification. The cities, big neighborhoods, like San Francisco, where the ethnic neighborhoods have just been replaced by, new things and younger people, this kind of thing. It's happening in our own neighborhoods. People here are being forced out, and where are they going? And I don't know where they're going, Alice. Are they going?
Well, some of them are leaving voluntarily, especially our youngers. And it goes back to the, I sound like a broken record, the remote worker. The remote worker can go anywhere. So my friends, millennial kids, just sold a place in West Medford for $250,000. They went to right outside Mobile, Alabama. They got a half acre, a ranch style, 3,000 square foot house, had internet and cable, high-speed internet and cable. They paid like $152,000.
Sure.
So they could put half down. Their payment is like nothing and the taxes are nothing. And they live in the country and they took their jobs with them. Nobody even knows they're gone.
Yeah, but that's a few people who can do that. How many of us?
I'm just saying a lot of tenants are doing that because they can go somewhere else and be a homeowner. And then homeowners that have these little cottages that are only worth, $220,000, $250,000, they can go somewhere else and get the home of their dreams.
Well, I'm really hoping that the conversion that we've been talking about, with Representative Marsh a couple of weeks ago, about her support for turning a lot of these old motels into, single studio apartments for people and things like that. Because that's what we need so desperately, is what I see around. But come back to straight housing.
But that was only 400 units too, right?
Yeah. And we're not anywhere close to meeting the need of that, and that's what's kind of, I guess, discouraging. Hearing the dogs.
We're still working remotely, folks. We all know what it's like. Happens to everybody every day.
So anyway, but again, I think that we just have to be very cognizant and aware. So getting ready let's talk about buyers for a second here. How are we going to compete with this?
So, asking people how they're going to compete, with the buyers is really an interesting question. So when you're getting ready to go on the market or getting ready to go out and do some kind of a purchase, you've just got to be buyer ready. You've got to be not only pre-qualified, but you can ask your lender to have you go into the underwriting process. And that's not a bad idea if you're buying a much bigger property than you were anticipating, or if you're buying for the first time. If you're buying your first investment property, it doesn't hurt to have the lender go do that for you so that you can present that document to the seller when you write your offer. The other possibility is that if you have a house to sell, you get that ready so that you can start looking while you're getting your house ready and start having an idea of what the market is like before you put your house on the market. We have somebody today who is going to write their offer today, and their house is going on the market today. And I think they're going to still win the bid because they're coordinating it that well, and they can tell their seller, I'm going to be on the market in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. Well, it takes just a few days. If you're ready in certain price ranges, you're going to get offers. And I think, again, everything has to be in terms of families to move in. It's got to be move-in ready. I'm still seeing over here in the Klamath area, Alice, have sold another place to a family from Ashland with 3 kids who've coming over here because of the
Ashland and Jacksonville, they're selling and moving to Klamath.
It blows me away. It was the second time. That's the second time for me.
So can you give us the numbers? Like, what did they sell for and what did they buy for? And what was the difference in quality of property?
Okay, both were renters, okay, and we're paying above that $1,700 price, by the way, for places.
Wow.
They had kids. All of them had kids, or sorry, I'm sorry. One of them had 3 kids. The other one we're getting ready to start a family, and they both bought places here in the 220 to 250 range. Both of them were 3-bedroom, 2 baths on about a quarter acre that we talk about.
Wow, a quarter acre.
So, and they were both conventional loans using local lenders.
Wow.
And that is also, and I just want to emphasize that again, because we've never done this before. I'm telling people, using online lenders or out-of-state lenders does not sit well with sellers today. Sellers
It makes them nervous.
They don't like that, and it doesn't. I think. Well, I personally like working with someone that I can sit and talk to, and so I tell a lot of buyers, if you want to buy something right today, you need to have a conventional loan. No matter what you do with your lender, whether you use whatever lender you use, you must try to get the conventional loan. It is so much easier, and sellers will accept that before they're going to take an FHA or USDA loan. I mean, or even a VA loan for that.
Well, and it's only 5% versus 3.5%. We're talking about a smidge more money down, 5% versus 3.5%, and then you can have a conventional loan.
Yeah, and so they both had conventional loans. They both put, I think, just a few percent down. In our cases, we paid the full price and asked the seller to pay $5,000 in closing costs, and both of those were accepted.
Wow, that's awesome. And $250,000 in Klamath is an amazing amount of money. A quarter acre, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And tell me, Pete, were they move-in ready? Were those houses move-in ready?
Both, yes.
So check it out. You can go from being a tenant to a homeowner, still keep your job, get a job in a different place, and you can have a home and a place to raise your family. Boom.
And people, they're willing to commute. I mean, that's what's interesting. And
they're willing to commute. Yeah.
And you see that going back and forth. Look how many people go between Grants Pass and Medford. You're shocked how many go from Klamath to Medford and things like that. So we have a very mobile society, and I think affordability becomes a big issue because, as you said last week, we talked about the stats last week. So Josephine County's on 21 sales, the average price was $467. Jackson County had 76 closings last week for an average price of $448,000. Klamath had 25 closings and an average price of $277,000. So you can see why families are moving here and why the schools here are really getting a lot of kids in them, because it's affordable. People, Alice, do not want to pay $3,000 a month for a home, especially if you're with modest means like most of us are middle-class people are. So lots of questions people have to ask before you finally do purchase things like that.
Well, the creativity is wonderful. And we've been watching people move out of Ashland and Jacksonville and the more expensive parts of East Medford for almost a year now. But we've got a break coming up. It's a very exciting conversation. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lima, here with the Real Estate Show. Quick word from our sponsors. Do not touch that dial. Well, welcome back, Southern Oregon, to the Real Estate Show. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lima. We're both brokers here at John L. Scott in Southern Oregon. And we're having such an interesting week in our local housing market. It's like we can't say enough about the changes we're watching. And on top of it, we're having kind of a low water year, which is making a lot of people nervous. What do you have to say about the water situation, Pete?
It's bad and going to get worse. Look, this is Memorial Day weekend. Summer doesn't even start for another, till June 20th. And look how dry things are. The stream flows. I looked at Bear Creek this week, just driving by, and it's a trickle, and it's not even summer yet. Mount Ashland, looks like it's almost out of snow, and Mount McLaughlin, it's melted. Anyway, we're in for a bad year. And I guess my thoughts on it are, how is it going to affect real estate? Not today, maybe, but in the future, later on this summer. Because as you know, in rural properties with irrigation rights, they command the top price in rural lands. Without it, the whole thing changes. So as we, especially and again, 1 out of every 4 homes is a rural property here that sells. So we have a lot of this happening. So what does that mean for prices, Alice? If you sell it, if you want 500,000 and you've got water rights, but there's no water, what is that worth now?
Well, and depending on what you're going to do with it, it can be a huge difference in resale and value. And so some folks that we're going to sell this year that have irrigated properties are going to wait because they can. Some folks are just trying to adjust their prices a little bit. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in the luxury market, because a lot of those luxury prices are held up by the irrigation and the commercial farm possibilities, especially when it comes to hemp and cannabis vineyards, things like that.
As you drive around in our rural areas, you're not seeing much being planted. I didn't see any. I know still early in May, but I don't think you're going to see. I don't think you're going to see a lot of crops at all that people would plant because there's simply no water. So the only irrigation water you're seeing out is coming from wells, and how it's like California right now. All the orchards and things, all the agricultural land in California is all being done out of wells because the surface water is not there. So it's going to create some real issues for rural properties. It's something we have never faced in our time this way. Immigrant Lake, just again driving by it again, the water level on Memorial Day, not even to the boat ramps. The bottom ramps, you can still go before you find water. It's not even full, and Ashland relies on some of that water, by the way, for drinking water after Rita Reservoir goes down.
Yeah. But I can also make a case for buying property, a rural property during the drought, because when you test your well, you stress test your well, and you get a good number, then it's going to be nice and consistent when the water comes back. It's also not a bad time to expand your water storage. If you own a rural property, whether you plan on selling or not, you can get extra storage units, either above ground or in ground. In ground is our favorite. They're more sightly. They look nicer. They're concrete. You can put buildings on top of them, stuff like that. But those are probably the only 2 positives I can come up with.
Well, we always talk about having extra water if you live in a forested area, for that. But I agree with you, even if you don't now, that having extra storage capacity, look, if we had more storage capacity in our lakes and things like that, we might have been able to get more water, but we don't. And so we're facing this, head on, and we're going to have to deal with it. So I don't know what's going to happen with rurals and their prices. Again, I think you're right, though. If you can just stay put and not have to sell anything, and you have water rights but no water right now, it's best to wait. And hopefully we're going to
add storage. Go ahead and just suck it up and add storage.
Add storage. You can get a lot of water off rain roofs, and you can. There are many ways as technology has shown us, that we can collect more water on our own property. So it's just a situation, for people who grew gardens and things and had water for, their animals to graze. All that's gone this year. And so even though it's green still, we're in it's not summer yet. Wait till 4th of July. Wait till mid-August. Wait till Labor Day again. We're back for the first anniversary of the Alameda fires and stuff, and how dry we're going to be. So I just it's something again that we have to be realistic when we talk about it, because it's real, it's here, we've never faced this before, and it's really going to it has to have, Alice, it has to have some impact on real estate as a result of this. I don't know what it's going to be, but it has to do something, and we're going to find out here in the next few months how it's going to take. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Well, and it's something that we like about having a weekly show on real estate in Southern Oregon, is because we can track these, minutia trends, these little adjustments that happen in the market, and keep an eye on them and kind of report to people what to look for. And we're not saying, it's going to be a disaster with the water, but here it is May, we're worried already, but there are things you can do. Like you can maybe look at your irrigation system and streamline it, find some way to make it better, find some way to collect water, like you were saying, Pete, rainwater, stuff like that. And we do have thunderstorms a lot of times in the summer. So it's not like we're not going to get rain. It's just when we get thunderstorms, we sometimes get lightning, and then we have fires.
I know we're in a really unique situation, and we're all involved with it. Our urban communities are very fortunate because we have great water supplies from the city of Medford, city of Cape Falls, Grants Pass. The urban water is not the issue. It's the rural water.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big issue that we simply don't have this year, that we've never seen. So, we'll see how it goes. I was trying to think before we get out of here today. Again, a lot of activity going on. The Rogue Valley Cup is in town. A lot of people visiting the valley. We seem to be coming out of more businesses is coming back. It's still hard to hire anybody, Alice. As you know, it's been businesses are really struggling with that. How that affects market, I wonder, because a lot of people aren't working. They can't buy a house, right? But then because you got to have a job. So it's really it's just a strange dynamic going on. And again, next week, I'm sure we're going to have a whole different story, because it'll change again in another week.
Yeah. And it's still a good time to buy a property. It's still a good time to sell a property. We don't want the sellers to get scared by our conversation, but we want you to be good consumers, want you to be informed. And right now, it's a great time to put your house on the market. We are getting more inventory, so if you need a replacement, it's doable. And we're still strong enough sellers market. You can say to the buyer, I need time to find a replacement, but I'll go into contract with you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, if you give me some amount of time to find another place. So we still have a lot of that going on, and it's working. So we just want to give you hope.
You got to make the best offer you can fast and be ready. And, it increases your chances. A lot of times you don't get them. Sometimes you do. But you're never going to get them unless you play the game and roll the dice. So,
Yep. But I'm telling my friends and family, don't wait. There's not going to be a crash. Don't wait. If you can swing it now, just get it now, and you'll be glad that you did.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. We'll have a nice holiday. And again, the Memorial Day is a time of remembrance. And here in Klamath, they fly a lot of airplanes, around here all the time at the airport. Always remember that. So it's a good time for a slow down to remember, because summer starts right after that, Alice. It's officially summer. And boy, with no Shakespeare going on, it's going to be so interesting to see how our economy comes back and what happens in the next few months.
So have a beautiful Southern Oregon weekend. Thank you for your service to the service people and their families. And we will see you back here next week. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lemus saying, have a good day.